And welcome back to the Good Morning Show. We are live in the studio, and we are joined with our political analyst and legal analyst for this next discussion about the Wikileaks information. We're now joined by Mr. Jim Logan from the law offices of Logan Thompson. Welcome, Mr. Logan.
Good morning to all, and Holly, what a wonderful, wonderful opportunity it is to be with you. Just love it.
And he has already voted today. Early voting started today.
I don't know if the camera can see this or not, but you get a little sticker. You get a little sticker when you go vote, and it shows the pride of the state of Tennessee and being a voter. What we try to do here at the station, as you know, is we try to provide information to people so that people will not just cast a vote, but they will cast an informed vote.
Mm-hmm. Right, and it is the hot political season that it is right now. Mr. Logan, what's your take so far on what you've seen in the national climate as far as the election this year so far?
You know, it's a sad day, while always a happy day, I think, because the freedoms that we enjoy. But I oftentimes think that we no longer have the time, the opportunity, nor take the opportunity to become educated about the respective positions of our political candidates. It's an identification with a party. It's an identification with misnomers of political philosophy. I don't know if many people in Bradley County or the state of Tennessee are familiar with, and let's make it a relatively simple issue, the nuclear issue. Right. I don't know how many people in Bradley County now remember the concept of mutually assured destruction. And when we talk about that in the respective positions of the candidates for president, I think that many people are just ignorant of what the true circumstances are that our country faces and that the world faces on that very important issue. Now, ignorance is not a bad quality, but we should strive to rid ourselves of ignorance and to become more knowledgeable about those kinds of issues. And I take that issue as one which is of some significance based upon the commentary of the respective candidates for president about nuclear weaponry and suggesting that it's okay for other countries to obtain nuclear weapons who are not guided by the nuclear arms treaties and pacts and which are in existence in the world today, primarily consisting, of course, as we know, of the United States, Russia from the old Soviet Union, China, India, Pakistan, and we want North Korea to get them. And the question of Iran does not have nuclear weaponry. And many people think that they do.
Well, they don't have it, but they're trying to create it.
Well, I'm not sure that that's what, again, that may be a position that people would like for us to believe, but the Iranian government, whether you can rely on them or not, has suggested that they want nuclear energy to be available to them. The Israeli government, who is most involved with the Iranians, their counterpart of the Central Intelligence Agency, supported the negotiation of the treaty to allow the inspection process to exist. Now, that's a fact. Who should be more concerned about nuclear weaponry in Iran than Israel? Mm-hmm. Okay? Netanyahu, who ran and was elected as the prime minister, he, in the last 3 weeks, changed the polls. The polls showed that he was going to be defeated by 10 to 20%. And then he began talking and trying to instill fear in the Israeli people, and he won that election because he said, they're going to nuke us. Mm. Now, those are not his words, but right. That's exactly what he conveyed. And he instilled a fear in the Israeli people, and he won the election by 2 or 3%. Well, their armory, their arms people, their military, their Central Intelligence Agency said, wait, no, we want this treaty so that we can walk through that country with the nuclear I forgot the name of the international regulatory body
Right.
that goes and inspects those things to see if Pakistan, India, China, and the other people are complying. Mutually assured destruction is for real.
Wow. And you mentioned and you alluded to fear
Yes.
being a very powerful weapon. And one of the things that we're talking about on the morning show is, and we played this on Monday. And Jim, I'd love to get your take on this. The national media, the mainstream media, is kind of on a narrative at the moment that they need to. All the citizens need to get the information directly from the mainstream media.
Sure.
And we have a clip, and I'm going to play that. If Josh could cue that up, and Josh, I want to get your take, or Jim, I want to get your takes on this clip here.
Sure.
Also interesting is, remember, it's illegal to possess
Brother
these
Cuomo.
stolen documents. It's
father
different for the
was a
media.
brilliant
So everything
man,
you learn
the
about
governor
this,
of New
you're
York.
learning from us. And in full disclosure, let's take a look at what is in there and
I
what it
can't
means.
hear it.
Joining
Is
us
it
now,
playing?
CNN's
We'll run that one more time.
Okay.
Let's see if I can put it in the studio here. Make a little feedback.
Also interesting is, remember, it's illegal to possess these stolen documents.
So he's saying it's illegal to
different for the
possess
media. So
these
everything you learn about
stolen
this,
documents.
you're learning from
You have
us.
to learn it
and
from
in full
us.
disclosure,
In full
let's
disclosure
take a look at what
from
is
the
in there and
media.
what it means. Joining us now,
So
CNN's
the first question that I have is number one, the information that's being released through WikiLeaks. Is it illegal for a citizen to possess those documents, as CNN is saying?
That's not accurate as I understand the law. And this doctrine that we have is called the public interest doctrine or public domain
Right.
doctrine. Things which are generally known in the public and are significant to the general populace are protected. We should not have and will not have, as long as we have the right of freedom of speech and we have freedom of the press where that others can comment on those matters. Those documents, that information is protected public information. It's a public interest doctrine or public domain.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it is true that if I hacked into your emails,
Right.
I've committed a crime.
Right.
If I'd taken your information and used it to do something
Right.
to benefit me and potentially to your detriment, I've committed a crime.
Right.
No question about that. But if I have hacked in and I supply those documents to the Cleveland Daily Banner or the
Right.
Chattanooga Times,
Right.
and I say, that guy that works for that WTNB, he is a crook. And what he's trying to do, he's trying to influence people to worship Satan. And here's the information.
Right.
I've got it from his emails, his private musings with his Satanistic friends in California.
This is hypothetical.
Hypothetical. Well, we can talk
Which one
about
is he
that.
Which one of us is he
The-
talking
The
about?
power,
I think that's
of the media. I
think that's
didn't
me.
suggest for one moment
Right.
that he had done that. But the implication, because I say it over this television,
Right.
does what? Well, you know, I wondered why he said that, because there might be some validity to it.
Right.
The arrogance of people like my friend Mr. Cuomo or the brother Hannity.
Yes,
or
Sean
those
Hannity has been
folks-
on this
those
on
folks,
Fox News. Yeah.
is just amazing. They think that they should bend, I love that term of bending information or bending change. And the power of the media to do that is incredible.
Absolutely.
Donald Trump's commentary to responsible news people should be ignored. But he doesn't have to buy an ad because his name is on the news media or in the newspapers every day because of the entertainment value, the appeal to the skepticism of us. We say here in Southeast Tennessee that we are people of faith and understanding, not for divisiveness. We want to all come together, and we should. But yet we fall victim to loving to hear somebody say something bad about somebody else.
Right. And that's definitely taken its shape with this information that's being released through WikiLeaks.
Yeah,
And-
but let me comment one
Sure,
thing.
go ahead.
You don't ever want to talk to a lawyer because he dominates the conversation. It's ridiculous. But how do we know the validity of some of the leaks from WikiLeaks?
Right.
The utilization of the Wikipedia, they've got a peer review for all of those things. There's no peer review for the guy who is hiding in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, and they just took away his internet privileges because supposedly, and who's to know this, supposedly they do think that there is some warping, bending of some of the emails that supposedly he illegally hacked, or people who work for him did.
Interesting.
So the question is, number one, what weight do you put on the release of the information? And I can share with you that I believe that 90% of the American people put great weight.
Probably.
Because it says something bad about folks.
Right. It's the age old, you do something nice, maybe one person says something, you do something bad, 10 people say something about it.
Yes.
So, and I want to bring in our political commentator, MJ, on this. MJ, are you with us?
Hey, I'm here.
And you've heard a little bit of the conversation now. Just to break it down to just simple terms, because we're talking about the WikiLeaks information here. And also Julian Assange is the person. So just for the who, what, and where, what are we kind of dealing with this WikiLeaks information?
Well, so WikiLeaks is just a website where you can upload documents and information anonymously. And that's a great idea for someone to have if they want to have a political website. Those websites are really popular. So obviously there's someone behind that website. And when all this information came out, my first reaction with Edward Snowden and, all those guys was, I kind of felt like they were traitors. Maybe that there was a reason we have these programs or, no matter what it was, I kind of felt, a little weird about it. But over the last few weeks, as all this information has come to light, it's such an overwhelming amount of information from so many different places and so many different layers that it's almost like you would need something like an internet to be able to put all the ideas together. And if you look at the internet as just this message board, it's this whole entire fabric that's come together. And what's fascinating about it is it's not just WikiLeaks, but it's that the system of checks and balances remains in the hands of the people. And so what happens is that right now, the people are coming together, and we're not putting forth a candidate that we cannot revoke through the court of public opinion. And the thing that's neat, and that was a great point about the peer review, the thing that's neat is you have Hillary Clinton mentioning and saying from the deep, dark reaches of the web, and if you go on the dark web and you use Tor browser, some people have heard about it, there's political message boards that is exactly the headline for the board. So she's saying exactly where these things are coming from, and these checks and balances are coming from a network of people who are policing each other, and it is, it may be full of locker room banter, but it's men and women there. It's pretty amazing space, and right now, watching all of that coming together, and just putting WikiLeaks against CNN, their statement, "Don't look, let us tell you," that implies that they had some credibility somewhere, which they did, and they lost, and they're discredited now. There's been so many things that are just, it's just like the gentleman said, who wants to hear about nasty stuff anymore, right? If I'm a business owner and I'm taking over a salesperson account that's left my company, I'd like to see his email, and if those emails show to me some sort of trail or some sort of thing that I've discovered that maybe makes me look bad up top I might not know about, well, American people, that government, that's our company. So for WikiLeaks just to be a message board where people can post things that, now it turns out, I guess, that we do need to see those. So my opinion on it is just, I'm glad that it's all come together, and I think it's really bringing people together.
And Mr. Logan, your take on that as far as what you mentioned, peers kind of really getting a hold of this information and starting to dissect it themselves to get the correct information out there. Do you think that this, the internet do you think that it's changing the landscape?
Well, there's little question that it is, along with the bending of information, if you will, the term I used earlier, by the respective broadcasting systems. As I said, sort of the arrogance of the media that listen to us and you are well informed and best informed. Respectfully, the coming together is troubling to me because, again, I'm not sure that the approach that we take as citizens in desiring the information for the negative as opposed to the information from the positive is the way for us to come together. I think we best come together, no matter whether you have a faith or what your faith is. We come together for the best as opposed to the worst. When somebody tells me that their decision is going to be made based on who's the worst of the two and they're going to vote for the other one, I'm shocked because most of them can't tell me a positive about either one of them.
Right.
The reality is if you view many of those policies, of the news that we've received, they aren't about the positives. They're about the negatives.
Right.
She's a liar. Lock her up. Now, if you want to discuss each of those, we can discuss those. Or he's a womanizer.
Right.
Or she ought to be put out in the field because she got upset because some woman named Jennifer had an affair with her husband and she didn't treat her. She didn't love her. She
Right.
looked at Bill badly as they walked in Arkansas and then again in Washington, D.C. I have tell you that I've interviewed a lot of ladies over the years in domestic relations matters, and I've yet to see one who had favorable commentary
Right.
about the person who had an affair with their husband.
Right.
Now, that kind of approach, though, reinforces negativism. It doesn't say, wow, let's talk about both sides of that issue. If you want to talk about that issue, I rather would talk about what are we going to do about a 67% premium increase in Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance policies. Now, the response, can anyone here tell me the respective positions of Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton with reference to that issue?
Right.
Can you?
I can.
Good.
Well, the thing that I always get people, they go, well, tell me 5 reasons you'd vote for Donald Trump and don't mention Hillary Clinton. And so I can lay those out, but what's come out over the last couple of days through the Project Veritas videos and through the WikiLeaks emails is that the media, for that message of that nasty language, the WikiLeaks emails are showing that the Democratic Party has specifically colluded with the media to put that message out. So it's not by Trump's pushing or by his narrative that message is out there. It's specifically out there based off of being paid for. So what I'm seeing that Trump is pushing and what's kind of emerged to me is that, number one, if you go back to 1985 and you go back to the 80s and 90s and you look at his building projects and the things that he's wrapped up in, he's been wrapped up in incredibly complex deals with complex loans, complex debt, very complex situations. So that really appeals to me. He understands the media, and my belief is that the media is more powerful than the military. It shapes the whole narrative. It even shapes public narrative. So he understands the media and the power of the media. I would like someone that understands that you have to be very careful with that. He's trying to unify the people through jobs, not through social agenda, but giving people jobs gives people identity. And when people have identity, they come together in community. And that plays out in farmers markets and festivals, and it hits the ground. And moving to a 15% tax for businesses, that would allow me to take that money, invest it in employees, invested it in sponsoring things at my Chamber of Commerce. And that most appealing is that he's talking openly about using the tax laws of this country to your advantage. So where for my entire tenure working for myself, everyone has kind of talked under the table about using tax laws, but finally we have someone that's openly talking about tax laws. So saying you need to be educated on tax laws to the point to where you can use them to your advantage, I think that uplifts the American people in a very intellectual way. So that's why I think that Trump is a good candidate for president.
Certainly, no question about it. He knows about the bankruptcy laws and how to make money, and he knows how to reduce taxes. Most economists, about 80% of them, in the decision as to the reduction of taxes at the top end of the pay scale is not as efficient. I know that every writer on the field of economics for the past 50 to 75 years, and even before that, recognized the fact if you put $1 in at the lower end of the society, that it turns over 7 times before $1 put in at the top does. With due respect to the nonpartisan approach that we would take here today in commenting about these matters, that fallacy has shown its way many times before in this country. The Great Recession that we had of 2007 and forward had a lot to do with a lot of different factors. But one of those was I wrote a letter to my partners in 2001 and 2002 again and said, get rich for the next 6 to 10 years and then get ready for failure. I missed it. It was 5 years. And that's what we will see under these circumstances. We've got to recognize that the story of faith, of helping those who are less fortunate than us, is the true story of an economic success for all of us. And to suggest differently that I need to worry about Warren Buffett or Mr. Cuban or others of the same nature who pay less in taxes on their monies than do their secretaries, or in one instance, they found that a janitor, he was paying less than one of the janitors, not the Buffett case, but a multi-billionaire. Now, those are hard economic principles and known facts, but yet we sit and say what we just heard as intelligent, knowledgeable people. No question about it. They will benefit, the rich will benefit by those tax cuts. Will society benefit? Therein lies the question.
Sure. And speaking of society, we have a situation which just tonight we're going to have the final presidential debate. Mr. Logan, what do you see happening? And I mean, this is the last chance for them to plead their case on a national stage with them in the same room. What do you see happening tonight on the political side of this?
I really have no idea. I really don't. I think that once again we will learn that Hillary Clinton knows more about world issues than does Donald Trump, but I think that the strident nature of Mr. Trump, the use of the terms of criminal, liar, those types of phrases will be most appealing to a substantial segment of our society. I think that's regrettable.
MJ, your thoughts on the debate tonight, what you anticipate seeing tonight?
Well, I think that those are all great points that you made, first of all. Well, with the debate tonight, I'm sure that they're going to bring up the nasty comments right away, and they're going to try and ride that narrative. But what I hope to see is Trump really stick on to see, the thing is if you look at George Soros and you look at the essays that he wrote, again in the 80s, and just about international economics, and his whole point was that these countries around us, that they've been dealing with us, and their debt is to a point to where they literally cannot pay it off. And so, you have 30-something years pass, and all of a sudden these numbers add up and add up and add up. And now we've got a candidate who basically has a background in leveraging people's debts and turning them into deals. So for a construction project or whatever that may be, it may go, hey, you owe me $10,000, but I'll let you, if you can just take care of this for me, then we'll call it square. Everybody loves that kind of relief when they can get it when they're in debt. So if you look at what the whole financial direction was of the world, now we've got a guy who can take these debts that we've got, and that's the conversation with, trade agreements. I hope that he sticks to trade agreements and talks about how he can take these debts and turn them into better deals. And I don't know if he'll get into explaining what those deals look like, but I think with saying if Mexico has this debt to us on paper, we can turn that into a wall because that would actually, kind of save the money. Like, it would be a good deal.
So you're
So
saying
I hope
saying it's less of a racial statement, more of a financial statement of build the wall, because you're saying there's actually
Oh my God.
economics there to
You know,
support it.
I'm sorry to jump on that, but if you go back to that whole statement where all this narrative jumped off with the media about he's racist, and the people that go, it's two bad choices, hold your nose. I think that they're doing that going, well, he did say the Mexicans are rapists. But no, if you go back to that statement, what he said was, in the whole context, was that this country is, the people that are coming here are not the best people, which would be great if we had the best people, because if we had the best people, we'd have that would benefit our country. So they're not sending their best people. The people that are actually being sent, which is kind of weird, are people with criminal records and some bad habits. And he goes on to say that it's even as far as Latin America and even as far as the Middle East. So if someone's saying that Mexicans are rapists, they're not giving people respect to go on to say he said Mexicans, Latin Americans, and Middle Easterners are racist, which isn't in the narrative at all. So, and even a refugee is someone who's coming here to escape. So there's a specific category of a country or countries sending specifically their worst people, which if you look at the drug cartels and all the history that we've had over the last 30 years of things coming into this nation and being profitable for other countries, things that are under the table, the heroin coming into the country, which he's addressed, I think, in New Hampshire and all these other areas in the Northeast. If you look at all that, he's saying what's being sent here, we have to stop. And they're asking, okay, well, what are one of your solutions? And he's going, okay, well, we can put a wall on the southern border, which should actually make a big difference. We could enforce our current laws, and we could find all the people that aren't the people that I'm talking about, and we could get them to leave.
All
That
right.
has absolutely nothing to do with race. It's just an immigration issue. Like, we love immigrants, but the difference between someone being sent here, a refugee, and an immigrant, two of those are the same, and one of those is not supposed to be there.
All right, and let me break right there for just a second, and I'd like to bring Mr. Logan back in on this, and just wrapping up. And we also have J. Adam Lowe back in the studio, who kind of just jumped into this. Any
Boy,
comments?
did I jump in. I didn't just jump in. I
jumped right in.
landed in the thick of it. I don't
Throw him
know.
a life jacket. Quick.
Yeah, somebody, I'm drowning here. This was, I thought we were, we Wikileaked over everything, and then all of a sudden we're in immigration, and I look forward to the profound words of Jim Logan, Esquire.
And I would like to bring it back down from the 30,000-foot level to the local level.
Sure.
How it affects the small business owner, the middle class. There's so many issues that MJ mentioned and that you've mentioned that are big world issues that do affect us, I agree, as a country. But personally, and you mentioned our health care.
Yes.
And as far as the Benton family goes, it's skyrocketed in the last couple of years. It's crazy. How can either one of these candidates help me personally?
Well, I'm not sure that they alone can. We've got to come to consensus. I remember participating, and I was so fortunate to be able to do so with two of the greatest leaders I know, sitting in a room where people with diverse personalities, diverse backgrounds, sat down without regard to trying to convince each other of a political philosophy or a candidate. Governor Bredesen, you may remember when he was elected, TennCare was gone. We had to make revisions that would be accepted by everybody across the board to maintain the greatest insurance coverage we could for the greatest number of people and for the health care providers who otherwise weren't getting paid. I had the privilege of sitting next to a wonderful immediate past president of the Republican Party in Williamson County on that commission. Across the table from me was Jim Neely, who at that time was president of the AFL-CIO. Seated next to him was the vice president for human resources at FedEx. We had the problem defined to us, and we sat down and we talked, we exchanged emails, we dealt constructively with how best to resolve that problem, and we did so. It hurt a little, but we got the greatest possible benefit out of the federal tax dollars for our doctors and hospitals and for the people who needed health care, which otherwise was not available to them. You know, when our clerks, county clerks, and our people who work at the sheriff's department and emergency services fit almost into the poverty level, but they have to pay about $1,000 a month for family coverage, and they're not making quite enough money to do that, for sure, and to maintain a family of 3 or 4. The health insurance and the cost of medical care issues have got to be addressed responsibly. To say that rich people can have health savings accounts is not an answer to that problem. To say that we cut benefits is not an answer to that problem. If we are a caring society, and I'm so pleased to have Mr. Lowe with me, one of the most intelligent people I know in terms of government, we can sit down. We can sit down. We can sit down with great minds who don't have an agenda to benefit themselves, but who do have the statesman-like qualities, statesman-lady-like qualities, to bring resolution to some of these problems. Now, I have potential responses. I've thought about these problems. There are other people who have, and they would be deemed acceptable to the great majority of our society. When the Affordable Care Act was passed, and I saw standing beside Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama, the presidents of, or chief executive officers and lobbyists for drug companies and for insurance companies and those things, I knew that this was the first step and it was going to cause lots of problems. And there are lots of problems. But I knew that we were embarking on a way, and it's got to be changed. It's got to be, no question about it. My wife is a diabetic. My wife is no longer employed. She took a layoff in order to allow somebody who needed the money more than she did, though she loved working with the Life Bridges folks. Next year, her health insurance, because I'm on Medicare, I love it, but you know, her health insurance is going to go to about $1,200 a month. I am blessed. We'll be able to provide for it, but I don't know that 75-80% of Bradley Countyans would be able to,
Right.
at all. Now, what do, Adam? You and I know that there are answers, but we've got to come together to do it.
Jim, you noted and we talked about this yesterday on Man Up America a little bit. You noted that at one point in history, we operated from a desire to get along, and latent in that desire was there were things we could agree upon. But what we have now, even in this presidential contest, is we have a caricature of each individual wing at play, and it's so apparent now that it's out front. But what it has done is it's shined light a little bit on this, that we as people fall into our ideological categories, and that there's a message in those categories that constantly says the hidden agendas are at work. The 24-hour news cycle has fed into this. We're constantly seeing people capitalizing on this idea that there's this hidden agenda. So you're in this standoff, and though you agree upon the problem and you agree something needs to be done, and let's just take health care for instance. It's hard to have an open dialogue about the quality of health care because the conservatives look at the liberals and say all you want is single payer. And the liberals look at conservatives and said, all you want to do is throw people into the ditch without health care, which neither of those is true.
Absolutely.
That there is kind of a middle ground on that issue. But what we've seen in this presidential contest is a push to the polarity, to that caricature of what's worst in us ideologically.
Would you say that's a form of kind of divide and conquer? In a way,
perhaps so.
Because what you're talking about, you're pushing people to, the extreme ends of both sides. Basically,
but we can't, as a society and as a people. What Adam and I have agreed on together as we dealt with other issues in our community together.
Right.
Look, one might say that Adam is a wonderful conservative. One must say that I am a liberal, okay? But Adam and I have never exchanged a cross word. When we dealt
Right.
with problems, we came to solutions to those problems, and we can do it as a people. It is our fault as a people that we are letting the arrogant news, as I've suggested it is, and the appeals to the hidden agendas, your phrase is accurate. We've got to stop that. We've got to demand that our leaders sit down and say, should health care cost $20,000 to go get 4 bags of sugar water in your arms, as we as a county were called upon to do, and we refused to do so because we had a prisoner who had to have that because he was suffering from an affliction associated with alcoholism. But we came together as a county commission and the people who were assisting the county commission, and we solved that issue. We no longer bear that kind of expense. And guess what? The hospital's making money off of us too.
A lot of this has to do with proximity. We enjoy a lot of goodwill at the local governmental level because we rub elbows with each other. We spend time with each other in a non-political context, which is why on the conservative side of the equation, the government closest to the people is the purest form of government, and why on people like myself constantly advocate defederalization for the premise that the more we federalize, the further it gets away from that context. So most people kind of agree that distance creates the chasm or the vacuum that the media pops into, that the ideologues pop into, and they fill this narrative, the very narrative your friend talked about on the phone, they fill this narrative with conspiracy that drives fear. And we know on a local level that that's not necessarily the case, but we're so distant from the ruling class of folks who make a lot of these decisions. We're so distant from those CEOs of the pharmaceutical companies. We're so distant from the White House. I think that there's a push towards contact, that context to where if we're approachable, if I feel like I can call my congressman, if I can put hands on my senator, that then there's some accountability to truth
Right.
and context.
Right, but that appeal, Adam, what you and I have seen in the past is the health care issue, the standard of health care that we enjoy in this country, are those kinds of issues cost. That's a national issue. If you have an accident in Florida on a vacation, or if you have some problem in Dalton, Georgia, as you've gone down to Dalton to visit a friend or those things, you want the same standard of care to be present here that you would have there, or there that you would have here.
And at the same time, you want the ability to make decisions with your doctor
Yeah,
who's
right.
actually seen me naked. I want that guy.
Yeah.
You know, I want that
But
guy
but
making
here's-
health
here's-
decisions
here's
about
your
me,
issue.
not the
Here's your-
bureaucrat, right?
Yeah, let me say this to you. Let me say this
But
to you.
everybody can, you know,
We
we've
relate
been
to that
exposed,
simple
yeah.
statement,
Yeah.
but we ignore the reality of it. Private health insurance governs what procedures your doctor can have more than does the federal government on Medicare.
Absolutely, and that
There's
distance
a,
is
there's
a
a
problem.
there's a clerk who's sitting in Raleigh, North Carolina, who's making $12 an hour, who has a handbook that when your doctor's office calls in, she says that's not covered, that's not necessary. That doesn't happen with the Medicare program to the extent there are some denials, but they are minimal. And our ignorance of the reality that we face causes us to say, I don't want the government telling me who my doctor's going to be. Let me tell you something. It's
The
a
insurance
known
company's
fact.
been doing
the
it for-
insurance companies are telling you who your doctor's going to be, or telling you what your doctor can do.
And that's
for
where
you.
conservatives need to man up and say,
Amen.
regardless of whether it's big government or big business, if we really believe that local contact, the power of the
Hallelujah.
patient-doctor relationship, how do we come by that regardless of the entity at hand?
That's why I love Adam
I
Lowe.
agree with that. And you know, there's so many things that are truth that both of you and everyone is talking about. But you know, for the just average citizen, I resent the fact that health care was shoved down my throat. I feel like if the entities that passed it had the same health care that I did, there would be more conversation of, like what both of you say,
Well-
taking it to that local level and being able to make your decisions and
But
more thought.
but your perspective, Holly, as good a person as you are, needs not to make the approach to the negative of an attempt to make things better. It's let's come together, you and I and Adam Lowe, and let's tell Congress and the President, convene a national commission like we have done many times before when Social Security was at issue. Get it out of the political agenda of the respective people. Have people of goodwill involve Congress, involve the administrative agencies, involve real people who represent the interest of the public at large.
Well, back
I
to our
like that.
condition,
Yeah.
that's not possible at the moment because of the distractions that we currently have.
But we
And that
can
is
demand
that is the ideal, and that is the next hashtag movement. If you'd say is let's get back to where we're having constructive dialogue to create solutions rather than blind rhetoric that's pushing us into these corners that are it's going to absolutely destroy everyone.
I know, well, you just feel like you don't have a voice, though, at
Again,
this level.
you're right, because we don't cast informed votes. We buy into, I don't want the government telling me who my doctor's going to be.
Well, and not just that, I'm just saying, I love what you said, to come together and to have a constructive, positive dialogue, but how does a Wendy Benton get her voice heard at the level of the powers that be that could make those decisions?
Answers. One, stop supporting those types of candidates who make those types of statements that I just did. You know better than the truth of that statement. Let's get involved as individuals and invite. In Bradley County, if we came together as a Chamber of Commerce and and labor, the couple of unions that are here, some consumer people who are here, who are not ashamed to sit down in a room, they're scared to death to get up in public and speak as Jim Logan does, because they're going to be, oh my goodness, you're a Democrat, you're not a Christian. What an absurd, completely absurd statement.
Yeah, we do run off very good candidates for political office because you
No,
do
not-
yourselves no professional favors running for office, and you do
Amen.
yourself no social favors running for office. Wendy, I don't think there's an easy answer. I am probably the most pessimistic that I have been in some time.
Sure.
But this is what I have to go back to. If I constantly believe that, even as a conservative, that that some of the conservative ideas that I bought into at a young age and even as I've grown are worth communicating, I need to do a better job personally of communicating them. Yesterday on the show with Rob Alderman, I made the statement that I would much rather have converts than prisoners in any warring context. And I know it's a battle, and it's a battle of ideas, and we're built upon a democracy that battles ideas.
Sure.
I'm not scared of the battle. I'm not. I am very scared of a battle that's fought with deafened ears, and that's fought with blind eyes. And so part of the reason we even started Man Up America, even though it's not an overtly political show, was regardless of the topic at hand, for there to be a purity to the things that take place in community and in government and in life, that we could communicate that purity. So I don't think there's a good answer to this, except for that we need to learn to live our lives with some level of compassion, as Jim Logan has said here, and some level of reason and restraint. I'm a conservative at heart because I really am a small government, freedom-oriented guy. And I think that to allow people to be different is a beautiful, beautiful thing. But I have to allow people to be different. And I don't have to homogenize them to me. If I'm an advocate for liberty, and I'll say this to any listener, if you are a true conservative, the heart of your conservative notes should say someone can be different than you.
Right.
At the heart of it should be that.
Can I make one observation? We talked about the trade agreements. Maybe you heard some of
A little
that
bit.
discussion. It's fascinating to me that the people who were the proponents of and resulted in the passage of the legislation authorizing the North American Free Trade Agreement, the GATT agreement, and those types of things, were primarily the leaders of the National Republican Party, the business people who wanted the ability to go to China and get work done for 30 cents an hour instead of here, to get rid of the tariff system. And it's fascinating that today those people are the ones who it is appealing to those worst affected in terms of losing the jobs to condemn the Democratic nominee for having supported her husband, having signed off on that legislation when he was at his weakest point, Bill Clinton. You know, it's fascinating because many of us who support the poor, the lower paid workers of our economy, wrote letters and said, you're going to destroy the leverage we have to enhance the quality of life in China and in Mexico. You're destroying it when you take away the tariffs because we don't compete with people that run the smokestacks without any filters, who put their, the chemicals that will destroy the vegetation and will destroy the water supply system in their country out, just flush it out on the ground. And guess what we did? We as a country, with a weakened president, with a majority of people who were supported financially, we passed laws allowing no consideration for the standard of living in those countries. What we said, and it is happening to some extent, is when they see how well we're doing, they're going to improve their standard and their people are going to demand it. And yes, they kill them in the square in China.
Jim, you're correct. There's a lot of blame to go around.
Yeah.
And Charles Krauthammer said that Republicans have lost, or conservatives have lost their heart, and liberals have lost their mind. And that's obviously his perspective. But what I've constantly encouraged people to is know when your house needs to be cleaned.
Sure.
And if you consider yourself a liberal, clean your house before you start to clean someone else's house. Same thing on the conservative side of the equation. There are things that we have to clean up and get back, which is why I use that term, the ruling class, because there's a lot of people of different ideological perspectives that move in and out of that and shift their ideals at any given moment.
And we want to bring it back down again to the local level here, and we have a great panel of experts here giving us their opinion on this current political climate that we have right now. And tonight is the big night, the final presidential debate. Adam, your final take on what you're going to plan on seeing tonight, what you anticipate seeing tonight.
I don't know if I'll watch. Is there anything I can learn from this debate that I don't already know? It's either been Wikileaked out or it's been press mediated out with the New York Times. It's obviously going to be 90 minutes or whatever, name calling. I don't expect anything substantive to be talked about. Mm-hmm. I can count on one hand the times since the primaries that education has emerged in a context in this presidential race, although federalization of education is a big issue for a lot of people. You can go down the list and take your pick. It's a fiasco. It's a ratings war. Right. I have no confidence that this final debate has any bearing on the presidential race whatsoever. There's my honest assessment.
All right, MJ, your final thought on the debate tonight.
Well, I think that this race now, with all the information from WikiLeaks, it's about corruption. That what has come together is that there's no Democrat, no Republican. It has just been a ruling class working against us. And I think what Trump is going to do is he's brought up in the last 24 hours that he wants to impose new term limits on Congress, a new term limit on, basically saying that if you were president or you had an executive office, you can't be a consultant to Washington for 6 years and lifelong bans to other countries. He's basically taken the whole entire narrative and drilled it right down to real legislative issues that can impact and change corruption. So when they say, well, how are you going to change all this corruption? He can now say, well, here's my legislative plan. So at the last second, he's gotten very professional and very academic, and I think that's really going to seal the deal for him tonight, is to present the American people with a real legislative plan to make a change.
All right, and then let's go to Mr. Logan. Your thoughts on this debate tonight. Do you think that that anything will shake loose from this? Do you think that it'll just be a waste of time, or do you think that we'll get some substance out of this tonight?
I'm hopeful that we will. I'm skeptical, and I hate to be skeptical about anything, but I am skeptical. I might challenge Adam Lowe to a ping pong match. He would have the advantage with his youth and his forcefulness. I'm weakened and will not be able to match him tonight. That's my hope tonight, that I can beat Adam Lowe in a ping pong match.
All right, and Miss Wendy Benton, your thoughts on tonight's debate? What do you expect to see?
I'm kind of like Adam. It's been very painful to watch. Just the back and forth. I would love to hear more substantive talk on the issues and what these candidates can do for the American citizens, for our nation. And anyway, I will probably watch it in spurts, because that's about all I can take. My blood pressure gets too
For the laws of nausea.
Right.
You'll probably-
And we're welcoming Josh Morrison back in
Or
here.
I can come and watch the ping pong
Have to
match.
fry.
There you go. It will not be quite as entertaining, perhaps.
That's good. And Josh, your thoughts tonight? What do you expect to see?
What night is it? Wednesday?
It's tonight. It's Wednesday.
I will
There's a
probably
debate tonight,
be watching
Josh.
my kids have fun and hanging out with my wife, because I think Adam summed it up. I don't know if I'm going to hear anything different than the first two were pretty much the same. It just,
Right.
I mean, I could get that level of discussion back and forth when I watch my two little kids.
Right. Argue about chores. Well, it's been a great. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I
One
didn't mean
thing,
to cut you off.
we're going to wrap up. Adam's show. Let me get over here and plug his show. It's on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays.
And that's
1
today
p.m.
too. So
Yep.
1 p.m. live. It'll be on WTNB and also on the Buzz 101.3 FM. So if you can't watch it on TV, watch
Yep.
or listen to it on the
Simulcast.
radio. Yep.
Well, he
Local
did a
youth
clip.
Sports controversy today.
Yeah, youth sports, the thing with the basketball shaking up. We'll let him cover that. But he did a clip yesterday on his show, and it was pretty fun. I'm going to replay that on our show to wrap up this whole political discussion.
Cool.
One thing, though, a little technical thing. If you could mute our mics, and then we'll put on the earphones so they can hear the commentary. And then the people at home can hear it just fine, but I want Wendy and Jim to hear it here.
Sure. And thanks everybody for watching. We went way over time, but it's okay. Great discussion. Thank you to all of our guests. Don't forget, Burn Barn is next week.
Next Thursday?
Next
October
Thursday.
27th.
And also the coat drive is now going on, community coat drive for the Caring Place. Tons of places you can go drop off your coats. Go to thecaringplaceonline.org to get some more information on those locations to drop off those coats. Great organization, great cause.
Okay, and this is setting this up. This is the Apple Festival that was last weekend. Fabulous event here in Cleveland. And Adam had some questions for some of the folks there, a little man on the street action.
Let's
So,
do it. Let's do
play
it.
that.
I'm here with a house divided. Tennessee, Bama. Who's going to win the game today?
Tennessee, roll tide.
Roll Tide, Roll Tide. All right, so the big question is Trump or Hillary?
Trump.
Trump. The only two Florida Gator fans who haven't realized that Hurricane Matthew is over. Why are you still in our state? America, has anyone ever told you you favor Bill Clinton?
A time or two, yeah.
Now, are we going to call him the first dude? If you were the real Bill Clinton, what would you want to be called?
Mr. Clinton.
Mr. Clinton. Are you sporting Donald or Hillary in the presidential election?
Donald.
Donald. If you could have Donald Trump win the presidency or Tennessee win a national championship, which would you take?
Tennessee national championship.
The big matchup, Donald or Hillary?
Donald.
Donald. Okay. If Donald Trump could be elected president or the Alabama Crimson Tide could win a national championship, which would you take?
Alabama Crimson Tide.
Hillary or Donald?
Donald.
Donald. If Donald could be president or the Vols could win a national championship, which would you take?
National championship.
You'd take a national championship. So, who's going to win in just a few weeks?
We're going to have Hillary Clinton voted in on November the 8th.
November the 8th, Hillary Clinton. For all you Trump guys, November the 9th is when the election is, right?
That sounds good to me.
That sounds good to you. now you're supporting Hillary Clinton. Let's be real. It's because you know that if you don't, you might wind up mysteriously missing from a back alley. Oh. What about the Gary Johnson vote? Does Gary Johnson have your vote?
I'm thinking very seriously about it.
He's thinking seriously about Gary Johnson. You guys got to get on it.
Most of my clients have fibromyalgia, lupus, MS, rheumatoid arthritis, diabetes, gout, peripheral neuropathy.
Now, what if I have a severe case of Trumpitis? Will this deal with the Trumpitis that is permeating my veins?
Well, I'm not sure what could help with that at this time. However,
I heard Tic Tacs help.
Well, maybe.
Who's going to win the next presidential election, Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump? Of course, right there. You know what I'm saying? I'm asking you a question with the California in my mouth. Question number 1. Donald or Hillary?
I pray Donald.
You pray Donald. Would you allow Donald to take you on a date and share a Tic Tac?
No.
No, wouldn't take it. Not gonna have it. Not gonna have it here. Will you allow Donald to take you on a date and share a Tic Tac and a side hug?
Definitely not.
Definitely not. There you go. Word from the. Now Bernie Sanders said I could have it for free.
Maybe later on.
All right. What about Gary Johnson?
I don't know too much about him.
I don't either. You know, I saw him down at the Piggly Wiggly one day, but you know, he was trying to buy weed, and I was like, it's not in Tennessee, buddy. So be truthful. You're actually voting for Hillary Clinton because you know that if you don't, you might wind up mysteriously dead. Am I right? I think if we get enough likes on the give up a Tennessee championship to elect Trump, he's going to sing Rocky Top at the inauguration.